I ask that your will be done through us, your humble servants. In Jesus' name, amen.
There you go. That's something like that.
Cool.
I thought that he was a good man. I had no idea the depths of the evil inside of him. You cannot explain evil, but when you've touched it and let it touch you and slept next to it in your bed, and you find out it affects you in more ways than you could possibly imagine.
I just came to do this interview because I think I was ready to tell my story from start to finish. It's very hard to talk about it, but it makes me who I am today, a strong person.
He was slamming the pillow right next to my head while he was bearing down on my throat.
Then he took and ripped my shirt, and then he tied my hands up.
He choked me until I passed out.
At that moment, it was like, he's going to kill me. It was like right after Valentine's Day. One night, all of us girls went out to this bar called the Buttercup. And he was at the bar, and I met him. He was very handsome.
Hey there.
Hi.
Asked me to dance. We danced, and just seemed really nice. And we exchanged phone numbers, and we left. And then he called me up, and we started dating. Fell in love with him, and he was just very sweet and charming, and he liked my son Craig. Just seemed like a very nice guy. This is a picture of our wedding day, June 9th, 1979. I see a happy couple in love. It was kind of a small wedding, mostly family. I remember that I was walking down the aisle, and I just look over, and my sister was crying, and somebody had given her a tissue, and I just acknowledge it as she's really happy for me. Really didn't think anything of it at the time. But when we got to the reception, she was still crying. I didn't understand why. Something was wrong, and she didn't tell me. She hid it, which I thought was kind of weird. I really didn't know why she was crying.
Hey. Everything okay? Yeah, everything's fine. It's nothing. Are you sure?
Years later, she came out and told me that Jim had raped her. He used to go fishing up where she lived, and so he'd stop by her house. She wanted to say something at the time, but she just didn't think I would believe her.
Oh, I'm so happy for you guys. I swear.
He was so nice, and everything seemed to be great. I thought it was just tears of happiness at the time. In the beginning, our marriage was good. Our sex life was great. But one time, we were upstairs, just started kissing and a little bit of foreplay. And then he started getting on top of me with his hand around my neck. And he started choking me. It was like out of the blue, because he had never done that before. So I was kind of scared, and then I was mad. I just pushed him off.
What are you doing?
I'm not into anything like that. He was really apologetic. I won't do it again. I won't ever do it again.
I'm so sorry.
I accepted his apology, and we just kind of moved on. He made a promise to me that it wasn't going to happen again, and I really believed that it wasn't going to happen again. Jim started getting more aggressive, started more choking. It wouldn't happen all the time, but it would happen more frequently. And there was one particular time I remember that he was choking, and I was kind of fighting him at first. But then I discovered if I didn't fight him, it would be less painful. I didn't tell anybody about it or anything. Just kind of shrugged it off. I was in love with him, but I knew this behavior was not normal. And it got to the point where I just didn't really want to have sex, because I didn't know what he was going to be like. So there was some time where I didn't have sex with him. Jim usually, when he went out with the guys, he would always come home at a reasonable hour. Usually, after the bar closed, he would come home. One night, he went out with Donnie to a bar, and I was at home, just on the couch, just waiting, for Jim to come home. And I'm looking, I'm like, well, where is he? Never had gone out all night and stayed out all night. But I couldn't figure out why he wasn't home yet. I thought maybe he was in an accident or something. I just looked at him and I said, where you been all night?
Oh, nice of you to show up.
What, are you waiting up for me?
Yeah, that's what people do when they're worried.
And he said that he had too much to drink and he just ended up in Donnie's driveway and slept the night there. It didn't make sense to me because where he was at the bar, we live right around the corner. Why didn't you just walk home?
I'm gonna go upstairs.
But I believed the story. I believed that's where he went. I never suspected that he would lie to me.
Hello.
I got a call from a detective asking me if they could speak to Jim.
Are you sure that you have your information right?
He was a prime suspect. I said, what's going on? I got a call from a detective asking me if they could speak to Jim. I said he was still sleeping, and he said Holly was missing.
Oh, no. Is she all right?
Holly Cody, we graduated together in '74. We became really good friends. She was a cocktail waitress, and I was helping her out babysit, and usually nights because she worked nights. And Jim knew her because she was my friend.
Jim, I don't understand. What does Jim have to do with this?
The doctor told me that Holly's car was still at the bar, and that they had people at the bar that saw Holly and Jim get in his car and leave the bar.
He said he was at the bar, but he didn't mention seeing her.
And he said, well, Holly never came home all night, and I would have some questions for him. It just made me like concerned, like, did he think that Jim had something to do with it, with Holly not coming home? I said, I can have him call you when he wakes up.
Yes, I'll let him know.
So I went in and woke him up and told him.
Hey, Jim.
I had a detective call when he asked me questions.
What?
Holly's missing and she didn't come home. What's going on?
Why do they want to talk to me?
Apparently people say they saw you with her.
And he said, yeah, we ran into her at the bar.
Yeah, we saw her last night.
And then he brought Donnie like across town and dropped him off. And he went and slept in his yard. I said, you need to call these people back because they want to ask you some questions. And he said, okay, I'll talk to him. I don't have anything to hide. I didn't believe that he could have something to do with her disappearance. But he didn't call anybody. Front page news that says prime suspect. They thought that he was the one that killed her. When I read that in the paper that Jim was the prime suspect, it gripped my heart. I think of how young she died and how she never got to live her life. I mean, she was just starting her life out. I mean, Heidi's really little there. She never got to see her daughter grow up. And now Heidi doesn't have a mother. I asked Jim, why do you think people are asking you the prime suspect? You must know something. They questioned us. And I said, I wasn't there. I don't really know what happened. And then they talked to Jim.
Jim, you have to tell me the truth.
I'm telling you the truth.
And they had no evidence. I mean, if they had evidence, they would arrest him, but they never did.
We're gonna get through this.
Still, I was in denial. I didn't want to believe it. He had come home about 2 a.m. He walked into the bedroom and he said that we're going to have sex whether you want to or not.
Take off your clothes.
I don't want to.
And we hadn't had sex for a while.
What are you doing?
He took the fan out of the window. He said, if you scream, nobody will hear you. And then he got on top and started choking me. He had both hands around my neck, squeezing tighter and tighter. I can't get away.
No!
And he's choking me and I black out. And then I come to. I don't know how long had passed. At that moment, it was if I don't do anything about this, he's going to kill me. So I said to myself, and I'm not ready to die. I want to see my kids grow up. I want to have grandchildren. I did something about it. I tried to make everything normal so that he wouldn't suspect anything was wrong. Just wanted to get out of there, but not let him have any inclination of what I was doing. So I knew our washing machine was broke. So I came up with a plan to make him think that I was just going to do the laundry and no worries, no concern.
We'll be back a bit later, okay?
And then walked out the door. And then I called him. I told him I was not coming home. He said, you have 3 kids. Where are you going to go? Nobody wants you. I said, well, I ain't coming back. and I didn't. I filed for divorce. I took my rings off. I was all done. It was about a month later. Got all the kids together, put them in the car, and just down the street, Jim was in the middle of the road waiting for me. He came around to the driver's side.
Lindsay, please. I just want to talk.
You can't sneak up on me like this.
He said, just move over. He just wanted to talk with me.
Please.
And he pushed me on the passenger side.
Jim!
Just shut up.
What are you doing?
You did this to yourself.
What are you doing?
He drove the car into this field where there's not even a road. Just drove into a field. The kids were trying to get out of the car, and he told the kids to stay in the car, or I'm gonna kill your mother. And so we got out of the car and we went off into the woods. I was afraid he was gonna kill me. He took and ripped my shirt, and he said, "Let me see your shoelaces." I didn't really know what he was gonna do with my shoelaces. I didn't know if he was gonna strangle me, or I had no idea. And then he tied my hands up. He forced himself on me, and he choked me. I didn't think I was gonna make it out of there. Once he was done, I kept trying to convince him to let us go. Why don't you just go home? You can go home like nothing happened. I won't turn you in. He said, okay. And we went back to the car. I don't know how I did it, but I just remained really calm. I was staying strong to try to get out of the situation with my kids. And I went right to the police station. They called and said that he was going to be released soon. I thought he was going to try and find me. I got the restraining order because I didn't want him to come anywhere near me and the kids. I was just really concerned about having to look over my shoulder again and worried about if he was just lurking outside or who knows. Just on guard for a long time. And then nothing. It was just like dead silence. We didn't see him or hear from him or nothing. I didn't even know where he was. I had no idea.
Suddenly, a hand reached out and grabbed me by the throat. I literally was more scared then than I have ever been in my life. I was 36 when I met Jimmy. I met him on February 28th, 1994, and testified against him. I believe it was February 28th, 1997. I was out shopping. I noticed that he had been looking at me.
Hey, hi there. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No problem.
I just couldn't help but notice you inside the store.
You must like what you see.
Got to talking and started getting along. Seemed like a normal, regular guy, down to earth.
Do you mind if I help you with those?
Sure, why not?
He was a window installer, and I was a little bit of a wild child. and had some substance abuse issues. So I really wanted to get past that. I was looking for an escape. He seemed like a safe one.
I'm Terry.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
He encouraged me to go back to school. It was, for me, the beginning of living a normal life together. You know, he always acted like we would be together forever, and that's where I wanted to be. I actually was using him. Little did I know, I was the mouse in the lion's cage. I suspected he had been in jail because I had been in jail myself when I was younger. And there's just certain little habits that people pick up, a certain way you put things.
So you know you can trust me, right? I mean, it's not like I'm perfect.
I started teasing Jimmy that I said, come on, tell me where you were in jail. I know you were in jail. You know I was. Why wouldn't you tell me?
What do you want me to say?
Well, you know what I'm talking about.
That's when he told me he was on probation. That he had been in jail for a small domestic violence incident that was not his fault.
Why wouldn't you tell me?
I was afraid you'd leave me.
His ex-wife didn't like touching him and was very cold, and that she was so still during sex that he just wanted her to react. So he reached out and grabbed her by the throat. And I've seen it happen with dramatic women, that they will take some little tiny thing that was an accident and turn it into a huge thing. So it was easily believable.
I just don't want you to think I'm a monster.
Baby, I know you're not a monster. And I know whatever you did, I know you couldn't have meant to hurt her. I know that.
Why wouldn't I believe him? I always went to sleep before Jimmy because he snored so badly. He'd wait for me to get good and asleep, and he would crawl in the bedroom on his belly and sneak his hand up over the side of the bed and pinch me or grab me, and it would just wake me up out of a dead sleep.
That's not a funny joke, Jim. Oh my God.
I think he was practicing his stalking. I've never been in a relationship with a man who didn't have some little thing he liked to play, that didn't like to tease. But that just was very creepy, very creepy. One day I came home from work and I went in and took a long hot bath, and I walked in across the hall into my closet and was choosing something to wear to look cute for Jimmy, when suddenly a hand reached out and grabbed me by the throat. I literally was more scared then than I have ever been in my life. And I couldn't even see, everything was happening so fast, and I just started hitting him in his shoulders and trying to hit his face. I thought some rapist had gotten into my house. And before I knew it, the man had me wrapped in his arms and was on the floor rocking and laughing, saying, "It's just me, baby. It's just me."
Don't worry.
Why did you do that?
Don't worry, baby. Don't worry. I'm just kidding around.
It was Jimmy. I was mad. And so I would, give him a few choice words and push him away from me and tell him to leave me the heck alone.
Don't you ever do that again.
Definitely there was something in him that was turned on by this. It was a very strange feeling. And then it made me wonder, why does he enjoy this so much? This is really getting creepy.
Sorry.
He told me that, he'd like to pretend like he was choking his mate during sex, and he said it turned him on. He asked if he could pretend one time. I like my men to be turned on by me.
But just be easy, okay? It's not too rough.
Of course.
So, in the spirit of pleasing my man, I was willing to let him pretend to choke me, but it didn't turn out to be pretend so much. His eyes started going back and forth while he was choking me. It was almost like he was turning into a different person. It was horrifying. He was bearing down on my throat, and he wasn't stopping. He was bearing down on my throat, and he wasn't stopping. It was like he wasn't there. It was like something else controlling him. And I hit him in the head, my knuckles, as hard as I could, 10, 15 times. Stop, stop, stop. I couldn't talk.
Sorry.
Once I got him back away, he finally just kind of snapped out of it. And then he was back. I didn't mean to hurt you. I was just playing. Are you okay? No, I'm not okay. I stood up for myself and just told him no. No, you can't do that. I'm not into this. I don't like it. Oh, okay, we don't have to do it. And he never did it again. His sexual desires were not to my liking, and so he quit. So we were fine.
Did you see this?
No, what?
This is a really interesting article.
There was a serial killer on the streets killing women. Every morning, Jimmy waited on the paper, and then he would read a lot of it out loud to me. Officials wonder if killings are linked. The recent discovery of a slender, dark-haired woman's body, nude, and left beside a North Pinellas road has prompted authorities to consider a similar scene from about a month ago. Everybody was reading about the story in the paper. He seemed to be extra fascinated with it.
What do you think they got on this guy?
Not much, unfortunately.
He was interested to know if they were getting close to finding the killer. His attitude was, they were just prostitutes. They knew what kind of life they were living. They knew the danger. And they were out there for the picking. Every time he would read the paper and read a new one, he would look at me and say, "Damn good enough for him, huh, girl?" He would use alcohol on his hands, his arms. He was so meticulous about his fingernails and his hands and making sure they were clean and nothing was under them. I noticed that he would shave his arms. He was very meticulous about shaving his arms. I just didn't know where to put that in my mind. He said the hair on his arms bothered him, and I found it odd, but people are quirky. People are quirky. He was very meticulous about cleaning the outside of his truck. It was just a good old work truck. And so it would get smudges on it. And he said alcohol was the only thing that got it off, so that's what he used. And I found that odd, but you know, I pinched in and helped. And one time I was helping clean it, and there were some spots that didn't look like paint drops that were dark. And he had a tarp in the back of it, and he threw it away. It was a good tarp.
Can't we just spray that down?
I'd rather just get a new one. They're so cheap.
You're painting, you're working on windows, you don't want to have to pick up all the chips. So that was perfectly normal that he would buy tarps. But I did find it slightly odd that he bought so many of them. He just said he didn't like them dirty. He was always buying tarps. We went to bed together.
Hey, babe.
And I noticed scratches on both sides of his back.
You were all scratched up.
Am I?
Yeah, like all over your back.
And I knew that they were fingernail scratches. When I asked him, "What happened to your back, babe?" he said, "Oh, I was working under a window with a lot of branches." I knew that they were not scratches from a bush, as he had said. I knew that they were women's fingernail scratches. I didn't push him on it because I really didn't want to know. I just said, "Yeah, okay." And he made sure I didn't see him again. But I know there were fingernail scratches. I know there were. There's times in your life you can feel evil just tingling around you. And for a moment, I felt that. And I'm thinking, there's something wrong. There's something wrong. I gotta get out. I gotta get out. I was in class for business administration at P-Tech. That's where I was the day they picked me up.
Are you Terry Jo Howard?
Homicide detectives just came into the classroom and said, "You have to come with us." And I just felt a horrible feeling come over me. My family's okay, right?
What happened?
yes, everything's fine. You have to come with us.
We'll tell you everything at the station.
No matter how many questions I asked, they wouldn't tell me anything. They took me over to the sheriff's office, and that's where they told me Jimmy was responsible for all the women who had been murdered in the area. They took me over to the sheriff's office, and they just started throwing pictures of dead women in front of me. And that's where they told me Jimmy was responsible for all the women who had been murdered in the area. It just was so overwhelming. It's just like having someone reach inside of your chest and rip your heart rate out of it. You're in so much shock. At some point, it's hard to even feel. I started having memories and little oddities coming back to me, and I just knew the chokings, meticulously cleaning his nails, and then the scratches, everything. More than once he had given me jewelry that he said he found. This is a broken part of a piece of jewelry that he brought home. I'm certain this is one of his trophies. That's why I gave it to the detectives. This poor woman was cut short in the middle of her journey, whoever it was. I know what she went through in the end, because he did it to me. It makes me feel more in touch with it, and I don't like it. Please take it back.
Many years had passed, and I never knew he had moved to Florida. And all of a sudden, I come home from work and I heard it on the news. I wish he hadn't been released. I wish it could have been all avoided.
Suspected serial killer James Michael Randall, wanted in connection with potentially 4 murders.
I was brought to Florida to testify on what Jim had done to me like 14 years earlier, to see his pattern, how it started way back then and how he got to where he was today. Seeing the women's families that were here was just heartbreaking. We see our kids don't have a mother, and you know, they're gone forever. Really broke my heart.
This is a picture of Jimmy in court. Jimmy never moved or spoke during the trial. I think the only witness he looked at was me. I just gripped my jaw and stared right back. It's the last time I saw him. He was walking out of the courtroom in cuffs, and he just turned and smiled and winked at me. And the way he had been staring at me previously was not a pleasant stare. It was like, you're the one I should have killed. I should have got you.
knowing he was in prison for the rest of his life, without parole, knowing that he wouldn't be able to hurt anyone else, was just amazing. I'm so lucky that I got out of being with him. I would have been dead. I mean, I had no doubt about that I would have been killed. It's affected my family a lot. It still affects my family to this day. I mean, just it never ends. It's always going on. It's 34 years. But I was not going to let him ruin my life. I'm married to a wonderful guy now, and he's so caring and loving and patient. I turned over a new leaf and started a new life. And that's the way I'm moving forward. I'm not going back. I'm moving forward.
For all of us, it was.
It began on a night that smelled of rain and gasoline. September 12th, 1998, a Saturday that should have disappeared into the archives of small-town Florida like so many humid, sleepless nights. Instead, it would become the date engraved on every heart in Cedar Hollow, a quiet coastal community an hour south of Tampa. At 11:47 p.m., a 911 call came from the shoulder of County Road 14. The voice on the line was trembling, fragmented, drowned by the sound of crickets and thunder. There's a girl. She's not moving. Deputy Alan Price arrived first. His patrol lights slashed red and blue across the pine trees, painting the asphalt with alternating waves of fear and duty. The body lay 10 feet off the road, half hidden by sawgrass, as if the night itself were trying to keep the secret. 19-year-old Amanda Ray Holloway, local waitress, college freshman, last seen leaving the Harbor Diner, was face down, her blonde hair tangled with mud, her hands positioned unnaturally behind her back. No wallet, no phone, no struggle marks on the ground. Just silence, except for the distant hiss of the ocean. The medical examiner would later fix the time of death between 10:30 and 11:15, cause blunt force trauma to the skull, no defensive wounds, no signs of sexual assault. It looked personal and clean, almost ritual. Within hours, rumor spread faster than lightning someone in Cedar Hollow had murdered the town's favorite daughter. Detective Maria Lozano took the lead. She was new to the department, Miami-trained, all steel nerves and sleepless eyes. From the first step onto that rain-soaked ground, she felt the unease. The scene was too deliberate. The body placement, the lack of drag marks, as if Amanda had known her killer trusted them before the darkness fell. Lozano's instincts whispered what the evidence couldn't yet say. This wasn't random. They canvassed every inch of Route 14, every bar and parking lot. Witnesses recalled seeing Amanda talking with a man in a gray pickup around 10 o'clock near the diner. Someone thought his name was Rick. Another swore it was Rich. None could recall a plate number. The composite sketch looked like half the men in the county square. Jaw short hair, mid-30s. By the following week, police had questioned 17 suspects and found nothing but dead ends. At Amanda's funeral, the church overflowed. Journalists hovered like vultures in the rain. The community built a shrine of flowers by the roadside cross, each wilted petal feeding the myth of the highway angel. The sheriff's office promised justice. Posters screamed, "Help solve the cold case murder of Amanda Holloway." Still weeks turned to months to years. Leads dried up, evidence degraded, and the silence thickened. Somewhere in the evidence locker sat a single envelope labeled Unknown DNA, sample hash 47. It came from under Amanda's fingernails, trace skin cells too partial for 1998 technology to decode. To the weary eyes of investigators, it was nothing more than a ghostly smear, a false hope trapped in paper. By 2001, Cedar Hollow had learned to live around the wound. The diner changed owners. Amanda's mother moved north. Detective Lozano transferred to the homicide unit in Tampa, but never stopped calling the lab every few months, asking the same question. Any update on Holloway? The answer was always the same. Not yet. And then came the flood years. 2004 hurricanes ripping through Florida's spine, washing away records' lives' entire memories. The case file was nearly destroyed in a storage leak, rescued only because Lozano drove through waist-deep water to pull it out herself. When colleagues asked why she still cared, she just said, because the killer's breathing somewhere. Technology marched forward. DNA analysis evolved from crude probability to near certainty. By 2018, the state's new forensic database, CODIS NextGen, could extract full profiles from samples once considered useless. Cold case units across the country began reopening drawers long sealed by dust. Lozano, now a lieutenant near retirement, requested the Holloway evidence be retested. The lab agreed. The sample, frozen for 20 years, was thawed under sterile light. The sequence was clean, miraculously intact. And then, for the first time in 2 decades, a name flickered onto the digital screen. Richard Eldon Carr, age 56, former mechanic, minor arrest in 1995 for DUI, no current address, last known location, Pasco County, the match probability, 99.997%. When the call came through, Lozano didn't speak for several seconds. The rain was tapping against her office window exactly as it had that first night in 1998. She whispered, almost to herself, "We found him." Detectives tracked Carr to a faded trailer behind a scrapyard surrounded by rusted engines and stray dogs. He answered the door, shirtless, tattooed, unshaven eyes darting between the officers and the open field behind them. "What's this about?" he asked, voice hoarse. "Amanda Holloway," Lozano said. His face changed a blink, a flinch, the brief shadow of recognition. Within hours, he was in custody. The interrogation lasted 8 hours. Carr denied knowing her, denied being in Cedar Hollow that night, denied everything except drinking too much and making stupid mistakes. But science didn't care about denial. The DNA under Amanda's nails was his, indisputable. Still, prosecutors hesitated. Without a confession or corroborating evidence, the defense could argue contamination, coincidence, even lab error. 2 decades is a long time in the world of reasonable doubt. Lozano replayed every photograph, every witness statement. One detail resurfaced: a waitress had once mentioned Amanda stepping outside the diner to take a smoke break with a regular from the garage. Carr had worked at a garage 15 miles away. She remembered his hands, always cut, always smelling of oil. It wasn't enough, but it was something. She reopened the evidence logs. Tire casts from the crime scene, long forgotten. The pattern matched a 1997 Chevy Silverado. Carr had owned one sold in 2000. The DMV record still existed, digitized by chance. The net was closing. By the time the press got wind of the arrest, the headline wrote itself. Florida 1998 cold case solved, DNA link stuns investigators. Cameras swarmed the courthouse. Neighbors who once whispered theories now shouted for justice. The town that had buried Amanda under layers of dust and denial was alive again, pulsing with vindication. Yet beneath the triumph, there was unease. For 20 years, Carr had lived among them, bought groceries beside them, fixed their cars, attended barbecues, and no one had known. The idea that evil could exist so quietly, hiding in daylight, terrified them more than the crime itself. Reporters hunted every scrap of history. Carr's ex-wife claimed he had violent mood swings, nightmares, fits of jealousy. Former co-workers described a man who would stare too long at young women, then retreat into silence. But no one, not one person, had ever suspected him capable of murder. The trial was set for March 2020. Then the world stopped. Courtrooms closed under the pandemic. Carr sat in county jail, aging, coughing, waiting. Lozano retired, but the case followed her into sleepless nights. She would walk her dog at dawn and think of that stretch of highway, the rain, the impossible patience of justice. When proceedings resumed 2 years later, the defense built its fortress on decay evidence contaminated, memory unreliable, chain of custody broken, but the jury didn't blink. They saw the photographs, the timelines, the silent echo of Amanda's life. The verdict came swift: guilty of first-degree murder. Still, victory tasted hollow, because in her final statement to the press, Lozano said what few detectives dare admit: solving doesn't mean understanding. We have the who, maybe even the how, but never the why. And that's what keeps a case cold even when it's closed. Outside the courthouse, thunder rolled again over Cedar Hollow exactly 24 years after that first storm. People said they smelled the same mix of rain and gasoline in the air. Some called it coincidence. Others called it Amanda saying goodbye. But late that night, as the news anchors repeated the headline and families locked their doors a little tighter, one fact cut through the static after 2 decades of silence. A single strand of DNA had spoken louder than 1,000 lies. And somewhere in the humid dark of Florida, justice exhaled, heavy, exhausted, and still hungry. The day after the verdict, the courthouse steps were still slick with rain. Reporters packed up their cameras, officers peeled away the yellow tape, and Cedar Hollow was left with the echo of applause that didn't quite feel real. Justice had been declared, signatures filed, life expected to move on. But justice, people learned, doesn't end with a gavel strike. It lingers messy, unpredictable, like humidity that clings to your skin long after the storm. For the first time in 24 years, the Holloway mailbox stood empty. No more anonymous letters, no more envelopes with shaky handwriting, claiming new clues or false confessions. Amanda's mother, Claire, had stopped opening them years ago. She sat by her window now, watching the ocean smear itself across the horizon, the same horizon her daughter had loved. She whispered to the waves, "You can rest now," but even she didn't believe it. Because rest requires closure, and closure requires understanding. Detective Lozano, retired but restless, felt it too. She still had the case photos stacked in her closet, the ink fading at the edges. Every image burned into her like a scar. The highway, the flashlight beam, the streak of blood that didn't fit the trajectory. She'd solved the puzzle on paper, yes, but she couldn't shake the sense that something deeper lurked beneath it. Carr's motive had never been clear. He hadn't known Amanda well. There was no history, no obsession, no affair. Just a chance encounter that turned fatal. But people don't kill for no reason. Not like that. Not with such precision. She drove to the old diner one last time, now repainted and renamed Harbor House Grill. The neon flickered against the rain, same corner booth where Amanda once served coffee to fishermen and truckers. Lozano ordered a black coffee, extra bitter, and listened to the low hum of conversation. Locals spoke in half sentences, afraid to resurrect ghosts. She noticed one man at the counter, gray-bearded, staring at the newspaper headline, "DNA Ends Decades of Doubt." He folded it once, twice, and muttered, "You think that's the whole story?" Lozano looked up. "What do you mean?" He smiled, but not kindly. "You cops always think it's about the killer. Sometimes it ain't. Sometimes it's about what you're not supposed to find." Before she could respond, he dropped a few bills and left. She followed him out, but he vanished into the rain like smoke. That night, sleep refused her. The words kept circling what you're not supposed to find. She reopened her laptop, scrolling through archived evidence lists. One item caught her eye: cassette tape labeled Holloway Witness Interview Septi, 13-1998. She didn't remember ever hearing it. It wasn't in her transcriptions. Maybe it had been logged incorrectly, or lost, or deliberately misplaced. The next morning, she drove to the evidence archive. The clerk on duty, young enough to be her grandson, retrieved a box coated in 20 years of dust. Inside, beneath brittle forms and moldy envelopes, lay the tape. She slipped it into an old player and pressed play. Static, then a male voice, nervous, whispering. "I told you I saw her. Not with him. With them. 2 men. One had a scar on his hand. She got into their car before she ended up on that road." The recording cut abruptly, the sound of someone knocking on the table, a shuffle, then silence. No name, no follow-up, no second side of the tape. Lozano's pulse spiked. She replayed it again and again, but the voice remained anonymous. Had this witness been ignored, buried, or silenced? She reached for her phone and called the state lab. Pull every fingerprint from the Holloway evidence file. Re-examine them against Carr's associates. Anyone who worked with him in '98. The technician hesitated. "Lieutenant, you closed that case." "Closed isn't finished," she said, and hung up. Meanwhile, the town simmered with contradictions. Some residents celebrated the arrest like a moral cleansing. Others muttered that Carr had been framed, that the DNA could have been planted, that he'd taken the fall for someone higher up. Internet forums exploded with theories corrupt cops, secret lovers, even whispers of a serial offender linked to other unsolved disappearances along Florida's Gulf Coast. Hashtags appeared overnight, #Cedar Hollow Truth Hash, justice or cover up. At the same time, new evidence stirred in the lab. One fingerprint from Amanda's locket, previously unreadable, was enhanced with digital mapping. It belonged not to Carr, but to a man named Thomas Greer, a retired deputy who had served in the same county in 1998. Greer had died in 2015 officially of natural causes. The finding hit Lozano like a lightning bolt. Greer had been one of the first officers at the scene. He'd handled the locket logged evidence testified in the early reports. His name appeared on the chain of custody forms twice, then crossed out. It was a small detail, invisible to anyone not looking for it. But to her, it screamed. If Greer's print was there, if he'd touched the locket before it was logged, it meant the evidence had been mishandled or worse, manipulated. Could he have planted Carr's DNA years later to protect someone else? Or was Carr his accomplice, the disposable pawn left behind when the trail grew cold? Lozano reached out to the only person who might know more, Deputy Alan Price, the first responder from that night, now long retired in Ocala. His voice on the phone cracked with age, but carried a tremor she recognized, not fear-guilt. "Alan, I found something," she said, "something about Greer." A long pause, then a sigh heavy enough to fill the line. Maria let it go. "You got your man. That's more than most ever get." "Then why does it still smell wrong?" He didn't answer directly. Back then, things were messy. We didn't have chain of custody software. We logged by hand. Greer ran the night shift. He made calls I wouldn't have made. Like what? But he only said, "Some sins are buried for a reason," and ended the call. Lozano sat frozen, the silence deafening. Outside her window, Florida's sky bled orange over the marshlands. She poured herself another coffee and stared at the old crime scene photo pinned to her corkboard. For the first time, she noticed a shadow behind the patrol car in the corner of the frame, a faint silhouette that wasn't there in any later photos. She zoomed in, a man in uniform holding what looked like a camera. Not Greer, not Price, someone else. Her hands trembled as she adjusted the brightness. The face was obscured, but the posture, the slouch, the angle of the shoulders seemed hauntingly familiar. She opened the personnel file from 1998. Among the assisting officers was a rookie named David Holloway, Amanda's cousin, assigned for traffic control that night. He'd left the force a year later, moved to Georgia, never spoken publicly about the case. The coincidence hit like a gunshot. Why was a family member on duty that night who approved it? Why had no one noticed? Lozano couldn't sleep. She called her old captain at dawn. "I'm driving to Georgia," she said. "To see David Holloway." He hesitated. "You're retired, Maria?" "Then I'm just visiting family," she replied. She reached the small town of Bainbridge by evening. The air was cooler there, but her heartbeat wasn't. David Holloway lived in a modest house surrounded by pine. When he opened the door, his face aged by sun and regret, he seemed unsurprised. "I figured you'd come someday," he said quietly. "You were there," Lozano said. "At the scene. Why didn't you ever say?" He looked past her toward the setting sun. "Because nobody wanted me to." His story came out in fragments, as if he were peeling off scabs one by one. The night Amanda was found, he'd been dispatched accidentally, a clerical mistake. He wasn't supposed to be anywhere near that highway. When he arrived, Greer was already there. "He told me to stand back," David said. "Said family shouldn't see that kind of thing. But I saw her. I saw the way he handled the evidence, like he knew exactly what not to touch." "Did he plant something?" "I don't know. But when the report came out later, I told my sergeant the timeline didn't match. Next week, I was reassigned, then suspended. They called it a conflict of interest. After that, I quit." Lozano's pulse thundered in her ears. And Carr worked at Greer's brother's garage. They drank together. Everyone knew that, but nobody cared. By then, the case was already frozen solid. She stared at him. "You realize what this means. The conviction won't change," David interrupted. "And maybe it shouldn't. Carr did something that night. I don't know what, but he did. Maybe Greer helped him cover it. Maybe he used him. You can't separate guilt from survival anymore." He looked down, eyes wet. "I just want her to rest." Lozano left him standing in the doorway. the sound of cicadas rising like static behind her. She drove back to Florida in silence, headlights carving tunnels through fog. Her mind spiraled with possibilities. Maybe Carr hadn't acted alone. Maybe the wrong man had been tried for the right reason. Or maybe the truth, whatever it was, had already drowned with Greer in 2015. When she reached Cedar Hollow, dawn was breaking. The roadside cross for Amanda still stood weathered, leaning wrapped in faded ribbons. She stopped the car and stepped out. The wind carried the faint scent of salt and diesel. She whispered, "We solved it, but not really, did we?" No answer came. Only the sound of waves beyond the trees repeating themselves like a confession too old to be heard. And somewhere deep in the archives of Florida's justice system, a new folder was quietly opened, labeled "Not Closed, Not Solved, but Under Review." Because sometimes the truth doesn't stay buried. It just waits for the rain. By the time the sun rose over Cedar Hollow the next morning, the headlines had turned on themselves. What was once triumph had curdled into suspicion. Cold case solved became cold case controversy. Rumors had a heartbeat again, pulsing through the town like fever. The same reporters who'd celebrated the verdict now lined up for interviews with anyone who could cast doubt on it. The story broke when an anonymous leak reached the Tampa Sentinel retired deputy under scrutiny in Holloway investigation tampering. They didn't name Greer, but everyone knew. His family went into hiding. The sheriff's office issued a statement calling it unfounded speculation, but the damage was already done. Trust cracked like glass under heat. Social media erupted. Hashtags bled into every feed. #Greer, cover-up #Amanda deserved, better #DNA deception. People posted side-by-side photos, Greer and Carr at a 4th of July barbecue, beer cans in hand. It wasn't proof, but it was enough to fuel outrage. Detective Lozano sat in her car outside the department headquarters, engine off, windows fogged. She hadn't meant for this to happen. She hadn't spoken to any reporter, but whispers travel faster than evidence. She felt the old ache again, the one that starts behind the ribs when the truth begins to rot under public light. Inside, her former captain met her with a stare that was part fury, part exhaustion. "You couldn't leave it alone, could you?" "Something's wrong, sir," she said. "What's wrong is the department being dragged through the mud. We closed this case. We gave the family closure. Closure based on a lie." He slammed his fist on the desk. "We have a conviction. You think the DA's office will reopen this circus because you feel something off." She didn't answer. Because he was right in a system built on paper, and politics feelings don't count. But DNA does. And fingerprints don't vanish. As she left, a young officer slipped her a folded note. No name, just 2 words, locker 89. That night, she returned after hours. The hallway smelled of metal and mildew. She opened locker 89 with a spare key she shouldn't still have. Inside were old photo envelopes, crime scene prints that had never been digitized. She spread them across the table, the fluorescent light trembling above her. One photo caught her breath. Amanda's car abandoned a mile from the diner, the trunk slightly open. In every report, it was listed as empty. But here in this photo, a shadow shape rested inside oblong cloth wrapped. She zoomed in until the pixels bled. It wasn't a bag. It was a jacket. She flipped to the evidence log. No jacket listed, no fabric entry. It had vanished before processing. The next morning, she called the state forensic lab again. "Run the secondary DNA scan on Holloway. Look for unregistered partials. Compare to law enforcement personnel of the era." The tech hesitated. "Lieutenant, I don't have authorization." "You do now," she said. 2 days later, the result came through. There was a second unknown profile, partial degraded male, and when compared across the old roster, it aligned with one name. Deputy Alan Price, the first responder, the man who'd claimed to arrive before everyone else. Lozano's breath caught. She'd known Alan for years, dinners, birthdays, shared trauma. He'd been the one who comforted Amanda's mother, who promised the family he'd never stop searching. The idea that his DNA might have been inside that car made her skin crawl. She drove to Ocala again. His porch light was still on, though it was past midnight. When he opened the door, his eyes already knew why she was there. "You found it." he said quietly. You were there, she replied, before anyone else. Why didn't you tell me about the car? He stepped aside. Come in. Inside, the air smelled of old tobacco and rust. The walls were lined with newspaper clippings, cases solved, faces crossed out, victories preserved, and in the center, framed like a trophy, the article from 2020. Florida 1998 cold case solved DNA link stuns investigators. He stared at it for the long moment. I didn't kill her, Maria. Then why was your DNA there? He laughed a dry, broken sound. Because I tried to move her. Her heart froze. What? I found her before the call. She was still warm. I thought maybe she was alive. I pulled her from the car, tried CPR. She was already gone. I panicked. I called it in after. Lozano's mind raced. Why didn't you report that? Because Greer told me not to. Said it would complicate the scene. Said they'd blame me for contamination. I was young. Stupid. I listened. She leaned forward. Did Greer kill her? Alan didn't answer immediately. He rubbed his temples, voice trembling. He was at the diner that night, off duty. I saw his truck. He knew Amanda's boyfriend. They argued about something, I don't know what. When I found her, she had grease on her hands like she'd been touching an engine. The puzzle rearranged itself in her mind. The garage, car, Greer, a triangle of convenience. Amanda must have stumbled onto something, maybe a stolen parts operation, maybe drugs run through the shop. She wasn't supposed to know. And when she did, Greer used car to clean it up. Alan, she said softly, you need to tell the DA. He looked up at her eyes, hollow. You think they'll listen now Greer's dead? Carr's in prison? They'll bury me to keep the case clean. Silence hung heavy. Rain began again, tapping against the windows. You know what the worst part is, he whispered. Every night I hear her calling. Not for help, for the truth. Lozano left him there, drowning in ghosts. She knew he was right. No court would reopen a 24-year-old conviction without new physical evidence. But she couldn't stop now. The deeper she dug, the more she realized the Holloway case wasn't a single murder. It was a nest. By midsummer, the story had exploded nationwide. Investigative podcasts, documentaries, YouTube channels, all dissecting the contradictions. Viewers flooded online with theories, timelines, voice analyses. What if the killer was in uniform? What if Amanda recorded something? What if the tape was never lost, just hidden? That last theory hit too close to truth. Because one evening, Lozano received a plain envelope in her mailbox. No return address. Inside a USB drive and a single note. Play this before someone else does. The video was old, grainy, time-stamped September 12th, 1998. The angle suggested it came from a security camera, possibly the diner's back lot. A figure stepped into frame Amanda wearing her server uniform, arguing with a man whose face was partially turned away. He raised a hand, gesturing sharply toward a gray pickup. Then another man entered the frame, a uniformed deputy, Greer. He grabbed the first man's arm, said something inaudible, then looked directly into the camera lens. The footage cut out. Lozano stared at the frozen screen. The first man wasn't Carr. He was taller, heavier hair, darker. She ran the image through facial enhancement software. When the algorithm processed the contours, the name it suggested made her blood turn to ice. Alan Price. She rewound it again and again, searching for any error, any chance of misidentification. But it was him. Younger, sharper eyes, burning with something that wasn't guilt, something closer to rage. It didn't make sense. If he'd found her already dead, as he claimed, why had he been there arguing with her minutes before she disappeared? The next morning, she called the DA's office. I have a new lead, she said. They told her to bring it in. She never made it that far. Halfway to Tampa, her car brakes failed on the causeway. She spun metal, screaming against guardrail water exploding through the windshield. When the tow truck arrived, they found the brake line severed. At the hospital, she refused to believe it was coincidence. Someone knew she'd seen the footage. Someone wanted the story buried again. The USB drive survived, soaked but intact. She turned it over to a trusted journalist she'd worked with years ago. If anything happens to me, she said, run it. That night, the power went out in Cedar Hollow. Entire blocks plunged into black. Only the highway lights remained flickering like ghosts. At 3 a.m., a stranger in a hoodie was caught on CCTV near the sheriff's archive room. The footage glitched, then went dark. When technicians restored it hours later, locker 89 was empty. Every photo, every tape gone. But the story was no longer in a box. It was alive now, bleeding across the internet, whispered on every true crime forum in America. The case that had once symbolized closure had become a mirror of corruption, fear, and unanswered questions. And as the first morning light returned over the Gulf, Detective Lozano, bruised, stitched unbroken, stood on her balcony, watching the horizon. The storm wasn't over, it was just beginning. When the footage finally surfaced, it detonated like a bomb. A 3-minute clip, shaky silent, soaked in static, uploaded by an anonymous user under the title Cedar Hollow Truth, The Real Killer. Within hours, it spread across Reddit X and YouTube, racking up millions of views before dawn. Every frame became evidence, every blur, every flicker dissected by strangers who claimed to know the truth. The world watched Amanda Holloway's final moments like a forbidden ritual. The gray pickup, the argument, the flash of a deputy's badge glinting in the night, then cut to black. Comments flooded in faster than the police could refresh. That's Price. I swear it. Cover-up confirmed. Florida corruption runs deep. Justice for Amanda. By morning, the governor had ordered a full review of the Cedar Hollow investigation. Reporters swarmed the sheriff's office, microphones thrust like weapons. Officials denied everything, but their eyes betrayed panic. Inside, hard drives vanished overnight. Case files were misplaced. The silence became evidence of its own. From her hospital bed, Maria Lozano watched it all unfold on a flickering television. Her arm was in a cast. Her ribs felt like shattered glass. The doctors said she was lucky. She didn't feel lucky. The brake line hadn't snapped, it had been cut clean. Someone had followed her. Someone had known. But someone else, maybe the same ghost, had leaked the tape before they could erase it. A nurse switched the channel to a live broadcast. The journalist she'd trusted, Eli Navarro, stood outside the courthouse. Rain poured down, lightning turning the sky the color of gunmetal. Authorities have yet to comment, he said, voice trembling against the storm. But tonight, Florida faces a reckoning. Was a young woman's murder covered up by the very people sworn to protect her, and if so, how deep does the silence go? The camera panned to the courthouse doors, empty, locked, guarded by deputies whose faces were as unreadable as stone. Lozano turned off the TV. Her pulse pounded. She needed to move to breathe air that didn't smell of antiseptic and fear. By sunset, she'd signed herself out against medical advice and drove slowly this time back to Cedar Hollow. The town looked smaller now, like it was shrinking from its own shadow. Windows boarded. Locals avoiding eye contact. The diner, the one where it all began, was closed again. A sign taped to the door temporarily shut due to threats. She parked near the pier. The sky was bruised purple, the air electric. From the far end of the boardwalk came a figure she recognized, Alan Price. He looked thinner, haunted eyes ringed in sleepless red. "You shouldn't be here," he said quietly. "Neither should you," she replied. He stared at the sea for a long time before speaking again. "It's all coming apart? Then tell me the truth before it's too late." He turned to her face, hollow. "You think I killed her?" "I think you know who did." He exhaled, trembling. Greer was running something out of the garage. Stolen parts, yes, but it turned into more. Drugs, cash. Amanda's boyfriend got involved. She found out, threatened to go to the police. Greer panicked. He called me to help scare her off. Said no one would get hurt. Lozano's throat tightened, and Carr. He was the muscle. Drunk, desperate, owed Greer money. I was supposed to keep it quiet if things went wrong. Her voice barely rose above the wind, and they did. He nodded, eyes wet. She tried to run. Carr hit her once, too hard. She fell. Greer ordered me to call it in as a hit and run, said he'd handle the evidence. I believed him. God help me, I believed him. For a moment, neither spoke. The waves crashed louder, as if demanding confession. "Why now?" she asked finally. "Why tell me?" "Because they won't stop," he said. The tape was just the beginning. There's more. Greer filmed everything. Her stomach dropped. Everything. He nodded. Blackmail, insurance, in case the wrong people turned on him. "That's why you're still alive, Maria. They think you might have it." She froze. "I don't." "Someone does," he said. "And whoever it is, they're next." A shadow moved at the far end of the pier. Price's eyes widened. "Get down!" The crack of a rifle split the air. Wood exploded beside her head. She dropped to the deck, heart pounding, as Price staggered backward, clutching his shoulder. Another shot. The rail splintered. She crawled to him, pulled him behind a bench. "Stay with me," she shouted. He gasped, blood staining his shirt. Locker. 89. Then his head fell limp. The shooter vanished into the rain. By the time backup arrived, Price was gone, dead before the ambulance came. The sheriff's department called it an unrelated incident. The media called it what everyone already knew, a silencing. Lozano sat in the interrogation room hours later, drenched, shaking eyes, unfocused. An FBI agent across from her slid a file across the table. "We're taking over the investigation. Effective immediately." "About time," she muttered. The agent's name was Rebecca Colesharp, calm, a face made of quiet fury. "We've been tracking corruption in Pasco and Hillsborough counties for years. Greer's name keeps popping up. We believe he wasn't working alone." Lozano leaned forward. Then who was? Cole opened the file. Inside were photos, men in suits, county officials, a judge, even a congressman. "We think Amanda discovered money laundering tied to a state contract through the garage. Greer was their courier. She threatened to expose it. They couldn't risk that." Lozano's voice hardened, and Carr, expendable, convenient scapegoat. Someone had to wear the monster's mask. She looked away, fighting nausea. "So we convicted the wrong man?" "Maybe not completely wrong," Cole said, "but not alone." The next day, the FBI raided the old scrapyard where Carr had lived. Beneath the dirt floor of his trailer, they found a buried box inside a VHS tape sealed in plastic labeled insurance copy. Cole watched the footage in a secured room. Lozano watched beside her, jaw locked. On the screen, the same diner lot, the same night, this time from another angle. Greer's truck idling, Amanda arguing, Carr stepping forward, Price shouting, then a blow, quick and final. She fell. Greer turned off the camera, but not before muttering, "No witnesses." The silence afterward was unbearable. Lozano whispered, "He kept everything." Cole nodded, "And someone else has been keeping it for him." Within a week, 3 more names appeared on subpoenas. One was a retired judge, another a former county sheriff. The third, Lozano's old captain. The community that had once demanded closure now demanded blood. Candlelight vigils turned into protests. The courthouse steps became a shrine of fury. The Holloway family stayed inside their home, terrified of reporters. Claire Holloway hadn't spoken publicly since the trial, but when cameras gathered outside, she finally emerged, frail, trembling, holding Amanda's photograph. "She was just a girl," she said, voice breaking through tears. "All she wanted was to tell the truth. And they killed her for it. Don't stop now." That clip went viral, too. By October, the case had become national obsession. Documentaries, podcasts, nightly specials, each claiming to reveal the real story. But Lozano knew better. The real story was never complete. It was layers on layers of lies, every truth wrapped in another, to keep it safe or to keep it buried. The night the indictments came down, the town was silent. Greer's associates were dead or missing. The captain was arrested, the judge resigned, but one name was still missing from the warrants: Alan Price's shooter. Lozano stood again by the pier, the water black and infinite. The wind carried the smell of salt and diesel, the same scent from 24 years ago. She closed her eyes and could almost hear Amanda's voice in the wind. Soft fading, not angry, just tired. The storm clouds moved over the horizon, swallowing the moonlight. Behind her, tires crunched on gravel, headlights flared, a car stopped, a door opened. Door. A voice said, "You should have stayed retired, Maria." She turned. The beam of a flashlight hit her face. The silhouette stepped closer. Familiar the shape, the posture, the authority in the stance. Her old captain. "Tell me it's not you," she said quietly. He sighed. "It's always been me." She didn't move. "You killed Amanda." "No," he said. "But I made sure the world believed the right story, because truth doesn't keep the lights on. Order does." He raised the gun. But before he could fire, another voice cut through the night. "Drop it!" Agent Cole stepped from the shadows, weapon drawn. "It's over." For a heartbeat, everything stopped: the sea, the wind, the past. Then the captain smiled, small and broken. "It's never over." The shot rang out. When the echo faded, he was on the ground, gun beside him, the surf crawling up to swallow the blood. Cole lowered her weapon, breathing hard. Lozano didn't speak. She just stared at the horizon, at the place where the sky met the sea, and the truth finally surfaced, quiet and merciless. After all this, she whispered, "Will anyone believe it?" Cole looked at her. They don't have to. It's finally recorded. In the distance, sirens approached, too late as always. And beneath the thunder's return, the ocean carried away the last evidence of silence. The courthouse smelled like old wood and fear. Reporters gathered in the rain again, microphones glistening under umbrellas, waiting for the next chapter in a story that refused to die. Inside, the air buzzed with whispers, agents, lawyers, and journalists all crammed into a single echoing hallway where truth had become currency and no one could tell who was buying or selling it anymore. Maria Lozano sat at the witness table, wrists tight, heart steady. Her badge was gone, her pension frozen, her reputation dismantled and rebuilt more times than she could count. She was no longer a detective, not officially. But today, she was something else, the last surviving witness of a system that had devoured itself. The prosecutor, a woman from Washington, calm and sharp, asked her to recount everything from the beginning. Every name, every timeline, every lie. Maria spoke the way people do when they've stopped caring about consequences. She told them about Greer, about Price, about the captain's final confession by the sea. About the videotape that proved Amanda's murder wasn't a random act, but a calculated silencing. When she finished, the room was still. The prosecutor closed her folder, nodding once. "Thank you, Lieutenant. You've done more than anyone ever should have to." Maria exhaled. For the first time in months, her voice didn't shake. Outside, cameras flashed like lightning. A headline scrolled across national screens, "Florida 1998, Cold Case Corruption Network Exposed in Chilling Twist." The footage had become evidence. The killers were dead, but their crimes were now immortal. Yet victory felt hollow, because every new answer birthed another question. Who else had known? Who else had stayed silent? Days turned into weeks. Trials began for the surviving officials linked to the cover-up embezzlement obstruction conspiracy. Each one pleaded ignorance. Each one blamed the dead. And when the juries handed down their sentences, there were no cheers. Only exhaustion. The kind of quiet that comes when people realize the monster they feared had been wearing a badge the whole time. Cedar Hollow tried to rebuild itself. The diner reopened under new management. The roadside cross was replaced with a bronze plaque in memory of Amanda Ray Holloway, whose voice still speaks through truth. Tourists stopped to take photos. Locals kept their distance. Some said the town felt lighter now, others swore the nights had grown darker. Maria didn't attend the dedication. She was sitting alone at the edge of the pier again, the same place where Alan Price had died, the same place where the water still whispered secrets when the wind was right. She carried a letter in her pocket, unmarked, no return address. It had arrived 2 days earlier. Inside a single line typed in red ink, you didn't find all of it. No signature, no explanation. She'd read it 100 times. Her rational mind told her it was a hoax, a troll feeding on the story's fame. But another part, the part that still woke at 3 a.m. with Amanda's face flickering behind her eyelids, knew better. She took out her phone and called Agent Cole. "I got something," she said. Another threat, maybe a warning. Cole met her the next morning at the federal field office in Tampa. The letter lay between them on a steel table, a red stain of implication. "It came through your old address," Cole said. "Whoever sent this knew where to find you. That narrows it down." "Not enough," Maria said. "We buried too many secrets to know where to start digging again." Cole tapped the letter thoughtfully. "There's one place we never checked. The garage, Greer's original shop." Maria frowned. It was cleared out. "Not everything," Cole said. "We've got a warrant now. Let's see what 24 years can hide." The building was a skeleton, half collapsed, eaten by vines, the air thick with oil and dust. They moved slowly through the ruins, flashlights cutting through darkness. Behind a false wall, beneath layers of rotted insulation, they found a locked steel cabinet. Cole pried it open. Inside were videotapes. Dozens. Each labeled with a date, each with a name. Amanda wasn't the only one. Maria felt her knees weaken. The horror was clinical, methodical. Greer had documented years of coercion people threatened, extorted, silenced. Victims who'd vanished without trace. The garage hadn't just been a cover for smuggling. It was a hub for leverage, a marketplace of secrets. Cole whispered, Jesus Christ. They loaded everything into evidence crates. By nightfall, the FBI lab was running digitization. One by one, the tapes revealed the faces of victims, men and women caught in the same pattern of fear. And somewhere in the middle of it all, a young Amanda Holloway appearing again, this time inside the garage. She wasn't crying. She was talking. Calm. Defiant. On screen, she said, "If you're watching this, something happened to me. Greer isn't the only one. The captain's part of it. There's money. There's names. They think nobody will ever find out, but someone will." Then she looked directly into the camera. "Please make sure someone does." Maria's throat closed. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. Amanda hadn't just been a victim. She'd been a whistleblower, a fighter. She'd recorded her own death sentence. When the footage hit the news 2 days later, Florida stopped. Offices closed early. Schools held moments of silence. The governor called it a reckoning for the conscience of law enforcement. But behind the official statements, the FBI uncovered something deeper, a list in Greer's handwriting names of departments across the state, each connected by coded payments. Decades of systemic rot masquerading as routine bureaucracy. Cole briefed Maria privately. "You started an avalanche," she said. Maria smiled faintly. "Then let it bury everything that deserves to be buried." But the avalanche didn't just bury the guilty. It consumed the town, the families, the stories that had survived on lies. Cedar Hollow's economy collapsed. Half the sheriff's office resigned. Locals began selling their homes, trying to outrun the shadow of a history that wouldn't stay silent. Maria knew what they did in Evil doesn't vanish when you name it. It adapts. She visited Claire Holloway one last time. The old woman sat in a rocking chair on her porch, staring out toward the ocean. The wind tangled her hair, but her eyes were sharp, almost peaceful. "She got them," Claire said softly when she saw Maria. "Didn't she?" Maria nodded. She did. They sat without speaking for a long time. The waves crashed, gulls screamed, and the sun bled into the horizon. "Do you ever think she knew it would end like this?" Maria asked. Claire smiled sadly. Amanda always knew what kind of world she was in. She just thought truth could change it. Maria looked away, voice low. "Maybe it still can." When she left the house, the sky was turning black again, thunder rolling from the east. Another Florida storm, heavy and endless. She walked to her car, but before getting in, she glanced at the passenger seat. The letter lay there, the red ink now smudged by rain. She picked it up, turned it over. There was something she hadn't noticed before, faint numbers embossed into the paper. Coordinates. She typed them into her phone. The map pointed to a stretch of swamp 5 miles from the old garage restricted land owned by the county-marked Environmental Reserve. Cole met her there, at dawn. They hiked through reeds and mud until they found what the coordinates led to, a half-buried steel container. Inside, more tapes. But these were different, labeled with symbols, not names. Military markings. Cole stared. "This isn't just local corruption. This looks federal." Maria's hands trembled. "How far does it go?" Cole exhaled slowly. "Farther than we were ever supposed to find." They sealed the container, called it in. Helicopters thundered overhead minutes later. Agents swarmed the site. Maria stepped back, the mud cold around her boots, the dawn breaking red across the horizon. It was over, but not finished. Back in her motel room that night, she played the last recovered tape alone. The image was almost gone, colors washed out by time. Amanda's face appeared once more, eyes steady, fearless. "If anyone ever hears this," she said, "don't stop at the first truth you find. There's always another one waiting underneath." Maria shut off the screen. The room went dark. Outside, rain began again, soft at first, then relentless, washing over the town that had spent half its life pretending not to see. And somewhere in the archives of the state, a new file was opened. Case name Holloway, status ongoing. Because some cold cases don't end when they're solved. They end when the silence does. They called it the Holloway operation now. What had begun as one girl's murder was eating its way through the state like acid police, judges, contractors, even a senator's aide. Files appeared in the news, then disappeared again, replaced by redacted pages and nervous silence. The FBI held press conferences where every answer was a careful non-answer. The truth had gone federal, and that meant it had gone quiet. Maria Lozano watched the silence spread from a safe house outside Tallahassee. 2 agents guarded the door. One kept the curtains drawn, the other checked the perimeter every hour. They said it was for her protection. She knew better. Protection and surveillance are the same word in different uniforms. Agent Cole came every morning with updates that felt like riddles. We traced the funds from Greer's network, she said, one Dawn coffee steaming between them. They passed through Shell Charities campaign committees, defense contracts. Someone used the garage to launder money tied to federal disaster relief. Hurricane budgets, flood repairs, all ghost projects. Maria frowned. So Amanda found out taxpayers were footing bills for storms that never existed. Cole nodded. Exactly. And the names on those checks lead all the way to D.C. A silence followed thick electric. Outside, the swamp hummed with cicadas. Maria asked, "And you still think this is about one dead deputy?" Cole looked at her. "It's about control. Every system needs a secret to stay alive." Amanda tore the wrong one open. That night, Maria couldn't sleep. She paced the room, the floorboards creaking under her bare feet. In her head, replayed Amanda's recording, "Don't stop at the first truth you find." She realized they were only at the first. 2 days later, Cole didn't show up. Instead, a new team arrived, men in suits without badges, polite but cold. They asked Maria to sign non-disclosure forms for national security. She refused. Within hours, her clearance was revoked, her escort reassigned. When she called Cole's number, it rang twice. Then a digital voice said the line was inactive. Something had shifted. She left that night, driving south with the headlights off, until the road blurred into black water. Her destination wasn't on any map, just another coordinate buried inside the red ink letter she'd kept folded in her wallet. The numbers pointed deeper into the Everglades to a decommissioned communications station once used by the Coast Guard. Now, it was abandoned. Or so the records claimed. The building sat like a skeleton in the fog, rusted towers, broken windows, an antenna sagging toward the swamp. Inside, dust glimmered in the beam of her flashlight, but there was power, a low hum under the floor, and a single light blinking on an old server rack. She approached, heart hammering. The monitor flickered to life, green text crawling across a black screen. "Welcome back, Lydia Lozano." She froze. A line appeared. "Heard you were still digging." She typed with shaking fingers. "Who are you?" The reply came instantly. "Call me the archivist. Amanda sent me her files before she died." Her pulse spiked. "You knew her." "She found me online in 98 backdoor bulletin boards. She wanted to leak evidence about county contracts. I told her to be careful." She disappeared 2 days later. Maria stared at the cursor blinking like a heartbeat. "Why contact me now?" "Because the people who killed her are burning everything. And you're the only one left who still wants the whole truth." She hesitated. "What truth?" The screen flashed once, then lines of file names scrolled by hundreds of them. Project Maelstrom, Federal Contract Alpha, Coastal Rehab Funds, classified. The archivist wrote, they used disaster relief to fund private security ops overseas, money out, weapons back in. Florida was the cover. The garage was the drop site. Greer Price, your captain, they were middlemen. Amanda stumbled onto the ledger. Maria whispered, "Oh God." She tried to send me the full data. Only part arrived. "The rest is stored here offline. If you take it, they'll come for you too." "They already have?" she typed. A pause. Then finish what she started. She copied the files onto a drive, heart racing. When she turned to leave, she heard the crunch of gravel outside, the unmistakable sound of boots. Lights flared through the broken windows. Voices shouted her name. She grabbed the drive, ducked through a side door, and plunged into the swamp. Helicopter blades churned overhead. A spotlight cut the darkness, sweeping across the reeds. She sank chest deep into black water, the drive clenched in her fist, breathing through the taste of mud. The beam passed inches from her face and moved on. When the sound faded, she crawled onto a bank, shaking, soaked alive. By dawn, she reached the gas station on Highway 41, paid cash for a burner phone, and called a number she hadn't dialed in years, Eli Navarro, the journalist. "I've got something bigger than the case," she said. "Meet me in Miami, no one else." He arrived that night, hair-longer eyes, brighter, the weight of fame on his shoulders. "You realize you're radioactive now," he said. She handed him the drive anyway. "So is this." They watched the data together in a cheap motel, government contracts, offshore accounts, names of corporations tied to disaster funds that never reached victims. It was proof of a machine built on tragedy, a pipeline of money from hurricanes and floods into private war chests. And at the very bottom of the ledger, a line dated September 1998, Cedar Hollow pilot. Navarro whispered, "Pilot program." She was the test. Maria nodded. And the storm that hit that year? It barely touched the coast. They fabricated damage reports. He looked at her. "If we publish this, we're dead." She smiled faintly. "If we don't, she died for nothing." They uploaded fragments through encrypted servers, releasing the files to independent journalists, international outlets, watchdog groups. Within 24 hours, headlines exploded across every platform. Leaked documents link Florida officials to global arms scheme. Federal agents denied it, then resigned. A congressional hearing was announced. The country turned its eyes to Florida again, not for beaches, not for hurricanes, but for ghosts finally naming their killers. Maria went into hiding. Navarro vanished into another country. The archivist disappeared from every network, leaving only a final message: "The rest is yours now." Weeks passed. The hearings began. Senators shouted, cameras flashed, and for a moment the word justice sounded almost believable. But Maria had learned better. Systems survive. They shed skin, grow new faces. The machine never dies. It only replaces its parts. She returned once more to Cedar Hollow unannounced. The plaque still stood by the roadside. Someone had left fresh lilies. The air was heavy with the smell of rain. She placed her badge beneath the bronze letters and whispered, "We did what we could." Thunder rolled over the bay. Somewhere behind her, a car engine idled. She didn't turn around. She'd stopped running from shadows. She'd simply learned to recognize them. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. A text. "There's another list. Washington, Phase 2. She deleted it without opening. Some truths she thought weren't meant for daylight yet. As she walked back to her car, the clouds broke, pouring warm rain across the asphalt. It felt almost like cleansing, almost like forgiveness. But she knew better than to believe in either. In the world Amanda Holloway had left behind, justice wasn't a destination. It was motion, endless, brutal, necessary. She drove until the highway disappeared into mist headlights, carving through the wet dark, the road unspooling ahead like a confession that would never end. And somewhere in Washington, an aide opened a confidential memo stamped Holloway, Maelstrom, ongoing. The file number was new. The storm was not. They started calling her a traitor before the week was over. News anchors who had once praised her bravery now questioned her sanity. Politicians went on television insisting the so-called leak was a fabrication planted by foreign agents. Federal agents knocked on doors, seized servers, shut down websites. The truth had entered the bloodstream of the nation, and the body was trying to vomit it out. Maria Lozano watched the frenzy from a motel off I-10 curtains, drawn pistol on the nightstand. The screen glowed with her own face photographs from 20 years of service, spliced beside words like rogue cop, national security threat, suspected fugitive. She muted the sound. Lies were louder without audio. At midnight, the door vibrated with 3 sharp knocks. "Room service," a voice said. She hadn't ordered any. She slid off the bedgun. Steady breath, slow. When she opened the door an inch, no one stood there, just a folded note on the floor. Inside, "You're running out of time. Burn the drive." She closed the door, pulse hammering. Outside, an engine started, tires whispering across the wet asphalt, then gone. She didn't sleep again. By morning, every phone line she'd used was dead. Navarro, the journalist, was missing. The Miami station that had aired their report had been raided for tax violations. Even Agent Cole had vanished from the bureau roster, her personnel file replaced with a blank page marked Restricted National Security. It was as if every ally had been erased one by one. Maria packed what little she had, clothes, the last printed files, Amanda's photograph, and drove north. The radio spat static. The sky hung heavy with the smell of another storm. Somewhere between Jacksonville and Savannah, she realized she was talking to herself, narrating thoughts like evidence. Stay unpredictable. No patterns. Never sleep twice in the same county. At a diner outside Macon, she used a payphone, one of the few left. The number she dialed belonged to an old colleague, Detective Hernandez, retired in Georgia. Maria Jesus, they said you were dead. Not yet, she said. He lowered his voice. They're hunting you through Homeland Security now. Whatever you found, it's bigger than state lines. She hesitated. Can you get me a place to disappear? Only for a day, he said. After that, you're on your own. That night, she stayed in his cabin deep in the pines. The walls creaked like bones in the wind. She sat by the fire, reading Amanda's final transcript again, her young voice clear and fearless, even on aged tape. Truth isn't what they tell you. It's what survives them. Maria whispered. You were right. Near dawn, headlights approached the cabin. Too early for Hernandez. She slipped outside through the back, crouched behind the woodpile. 2 men stepped from a black SUV, dark suits, no insignia. They entered without knocking. Moments later, muffled voices, a thud. Silence. Then one man said, She's not here. Another replied, Check the woods. Maria ran. Branches whipped her face, mud sucked at her boots. Shots cracked behind her splintering trees. She dove into a ravine, sliding until the world became cold water and gravel. When she crawled out, the SUV lights were gone. So was the cabin. When she crept back hours later, it was burning. No sign of Hernandez. She drove west through the night, exhaustion gnawing at her nerves. At a truck stop in Alabama, she saw her face again, this time on a wanted bulletin stapled to the counter suspect Maria Lozano. Armed and dangerous. She tore it down before the clerk noticed. By the 3rd day, she'd reached Texas, her body running on caffeine and fear. She rented another nameless motel room, covered the window with towels, connected the drive to a laptop. Half the files were corrupted, now scrambled by humidity or sabotage, but one folder opened documents stamped Maelstrom, Level 5, Access. Inside, a single audio file labeled Phase 2, Briefing. She hit play. A male voice spoke through static, calm, bureaucratic. Operational success confirmed in Florida pilot. Recommend expansion to Gulf and Atlantic sectors. Civil reconstruction remains optimal cover for supply transfers. Potential whistleblowers neutralized. Media containment stable. Then another voice clearer, colder, unmistakable. Her captain. Authorization secured from DC, no loose ends. She stopped, the playback stomach twisting. There had been more phases, other towns, other storms. Florida had just been the rehearsal. Her phone buzzed a text from an unknown number. You still breathing? She hesitated, then typed, Who is this Cole? Meet me where it started. Cedar Hollow? She drove 12 hours without stopping. The highway stretched empty, lit only by lightning veins across the clouds. When she reached the coast, the town looked hollowed out, half the buildings for sale, the rest boarded, like eyes refusing to open. At the pier, a single figure stood under a flickering lamp. Agent Cole Gaunt, rain-soaked alive. I didn't think you'd make it, Cole said. I didn't think you were real anymore. Cole managed a tired smile. They tried to disappear me. I disappeared myself instead. They sat in her car, rain hammering the roof. Cole handed her a flash drive. This is the rest. The servers you copied were bait. The real archives buried offshore. International waters. They can't touch it there. Maria stared at her. Then why bring it back? Because exposure isn't enough. It has to stick. And that means testimony, yours. Maria laughed bitterly. They'll never let me reach a courtroom. Cole looked at her. Then we do it our way, broadcast it, live. They found a satellite news van abandoned at a shuttered TV station. The equipment still worked. Cole patched the signal through encrypted relays while Maria wrote out everything she knew, names, dates, recordings. At midnight, they went live. No anchor, no intro. Just Maria's voice filling the static. My name is Maria Lozano. I was a detective in Cedar Hollow, Florida. In 1998, a girl named Amanda Holloway was murdered. The case was solved on paper, but the truth never was. She told it all. The cover-up, the garage, the stolen relief money, the deaths. She named officials still in office. She showed Amanda's final video. For 43 minutes, the feed held. Then the screen went black. Cole cursed. Signal cut. Did it reach anyone enough, she said. Once it's out, you can't bury it again. Sirens wailed in the distance. They left the van and ran into the marsh. Drones buzzed overhead like hornets. Cole shoved the master drive into Maria's hands. If I don't make it, don't, Maria said. Make sure they remember her name. The ground exploded beside them, a flash of light thunder that wasn't weather. Maria hit the mud ears ringing. When she looked up, Cole was gone. Smoke where she'd stood, helicopters sweeping in. She crawled toward the tree line, clutching the drive. Every muscle screamed. She reached the water's edge, dove beneath the surface, and swam until the noise faded behind her. When she surfaced, the shore was distant fire. She floated on her back, gasping, the drive pressed to her chest like a heartbeat. Somewhere above, the first rays of dawn broke through the storm. Birds rose from the mangroves, startled but alive. The sea smelled of salt and diesel, the scent of endings and beginnings. By noon, news outlets across the world were airing fragments of her transmission. Hashtags multiplied again, #Holloway Files, #TruthFlood, #Maria Lozano. Governments denied investigations, promised committees formed. The same cycle of outrage and forgetting began to spin. But this time, one detail refused to vanish the girl's name. Amanda Holloway. Her voice replayed endlessly online. If you're watching this, make sure someone does. Maria watched from a fishing boat off the coast, hidden under a tattered tarp. The captain, an old Cuban who asked no questions, turned up the radio. A reporter was saying federal officials confirm the authenticity of the Holloway tapes. Sources indicate arrests may follow. She smiled faintly. Maybe that's enough, she whispered. The captain asked where she wanted to go. She pointed south, somewhere warm, somewhere quiet. As the boat cut through the waves, she looked back one last time. The shoreline was shrinking, swallowed by mist, the ghosts of Cedar Hollow finally fading into the horizon. The world would rewrite the story 100 ways, hero, traitor, conspiracy, martyr, but Amanda's truth had survived them all. And somewhere in a government office lit by cold fluorescent light, a clerk stamped a new classification on a fresh folder. Holloway, Phase 3, pending. Because even when this case is solved, the system always leaves room for the next storm. The ocean became her country. For weeks, Maria Lozano lived between coastlines, slipping from port to port under false names, following tides instead of borders. The news on shortwave radios changed accents, but not headlines. Holloway leak triggers global inquiry. Governments promised transparency. Corporations denied involvement. The story had become too large for ownership. And yet, somewhere behind the noise, someone was still cleaning the edges, scrubbing names, erasing records, replacing facts with shadows. She reached Lisbon aboard a cargo ship carrying oranges and silence. The captain handed her a passport with a new name, Marissa Luna, and wished her luck like a priest at confession. You didn't hear this from me, he said, but your story's still burning. In a narrow hostel overlooking the river, she watched European newscasts play fragments of her broadcast blurred footage of Amanda Holloway subtitles crawling like prayers. The anchor said investigators had traced Project Maelstrom through shell companies registered in Panama, Malta, and the British Virgin Islands. Billions moved in circles, vanishing where sunlight couldn't reach. The scandal had become global currency. Every government blamed another. Maria kept her curtains closed. The streets outside buzzed with tourists who would never know her name. That anonymity felt almost holy. But even here, the ghosts followed. Each night she dreamed of the pier, the gun, the flash of light that had erased Agent Cole. In the dream, Amanda was always walking ahead of her through the fog, turning only once to say, "You stopped too soon." She woke one dawn to the smell of burnt coffee and a knock on the door. A courier left a padded envelope, no return address, just a wax seal imprinted with the initials AH. Her heart froze. Inside, a single micro SD card and a note in neat block letters, last piece, Zurich, 47°22. N 8°33 E. Trust only the archivist. Zurich, the city of vaults. 2 days later, she was there, gray sky, clean air, clockwork trains. She walked past banks that looked like cathedrals and felt the same hush inside them. At a cafe by the river, she waited until a man in a dark coat sat across from her without asking. His beard was streaked with white, his eyes unreadable. "I hoped you'd never come," he said. The letter said, "I know, I sent it." "The archivist?" He nodded, or what's left of him. He slid a small key across the table. Locker 312, Bahnhofstrasse Depot. Inside is the original ledger Amanda copied before she died. The one even Maelstrom doesn't know exists. It names the buyers. Buyers, governments, agencies, wars built from hurricanes. She stared at him. "Why give it to me?" "Because I can't keep running," he said. "And because you still believe exposure matters." Before she could answer, his phone vibrated once. He looked down, exhaled. They're already here. Then he stood, walked toward the bridge, and disappeared into the crowd. She never saw him again. The locker key felt heavier than metal. She took the tram through falling snow, every window reflecting her face back like evidence. At the depot, she found locker 312, opened it with trembling hands. Inside, no paper, no disc. Only another envelope. On it, one line. "They found me first. Keep moving." Footsteps echoed down the corridor. 2 men in suits entered, scanning lockers. She slipped out the service exit, heart slamming. Outside, sirens wailed somewhere far away, or maybe very near. She boarded the first train, leaving the station destination unknown. Hours later, across the border in Italy, she opened the envelope, a single photograph, Amanda standing beside a bulletin board filled with maps and receipts. At the bottom, written in pen, "The storm isn't weather." She stared until the words blurred. Then she understood. Maelstrom hadn't been named for chaos. It was chaos manufactured, controlled, profitable. Artificial hurricanes seeded storms used as economic weapons. Relief funds feeding defense budgets. Amanda had uncovered the blueprint of climate manipulation disguised as disaster recovery. Florida's storm in 1998 had been a prototype test. Every hurricane since a balance sheet. Her stomach turned. She looked out the train window, rain slashing sideways against glass, and wondered whether nature itself had been rewritten into an industry. That night, she met a contact of Navarro's in Rome, a tech activist named Lucia. The woman greeted her with a whisper, "We've mirrored your files on 6 continents, even if they erase you, the data lives." Maria handed her the photograph. "Then add this. It's the missing motive." Lucia studied it, eyes widening. "If this is true, it's not just corruption, it's creation." "Then don't let them own it," Maria said. They spent 3 days uploading the last archives into decentralized servers, an invisible cathedral of truth floating through the digital ether. When the final progress bar reached 100%, Lucia smiled. "It's out, irreversible." Maria felt nothing. Relief was a luxury she no longer trusted. By morning, the news broke again. Leaked documents suggest governments manipulating climate data for profit. Stock markets convulsed, officials resigned, protests flared across capitals. The world demanded answers it wasn't prepared to hear. Maria left Rome before dawn, moving south through small coastal towns, always near the sea. The Mediterranean smelled like memory salt, diesel rain. She carried only a backpack and a photograph of Amanda laminated against water. In Marseille, she stopped at a chapel overlooking the harbor. The wind pushed through the broken glass windows, carrying the faint sound of sirens from the city below. She lit a candle and watched the flame fight the draft. "You did it," she whispered to the photograph. "They'll remember your name." Her phone buzzed once more, an encrypted message from an unknown number. "Endgame uploaded. See you soon." Attached was a file, a short video. She pressed play. The screen showed Amanda again, this time smiling, younger, alive. "If you're watching this, it means you finished what I couldn't," she said. "But remember, Maria, the truth isn't a weapon. It's a mirror. Hold it too long and you see yourself." Then, static. Tears blurred the candlelight. Maria closed the phone, left it on the altar, and walked outside. The horizon was a sheet of silver. A storm gathered far off the coast, unnatural in its precision, spiraling perfectly, like something engineered. She watched it for a long time, not afraid, only certain. By dusk, she was on another boat heading west. The crew didn't ask her name. She stood at the bow as lightning stitched across the clouds, each flash revealing the endless sea that had carried every secret humanity tried to drown. She thought of Amanda, of Cole of Greer and Price, and all the lies dressed as justice. She thought of Florida, the night air, thick with rain and gasoline, and how a single strand of DNA had pulled the thread that unraveled the world. When the storm finally reached them, she didn't move. The wind tore at her coat, the rain burned cold against her skin. Somewhere inside the tempest, she swore she heard Amanda's voice again. "Don't stop at the first truth you find." Maria closed her eyes. "I won't," she whispered. The ship vanished into the curtain of rain. In the morning, there would be headlines, debates, denials. Some would call her hero, others traitor. But out here, between thunder and silence, there was only the hum of the sea and the faint promise that somewhere, somehow, the truth was still afloat. And in an office in Washington, a single notification blinked on a secure monitor: unauthorized transmission maelstrom data release. Below it, a message typed by an unknown user, Amanda Holloway, sends her regards. The world woke up different. By sunrise, every major network had broken from regular programming. Anchors spoke in clipped, stunned tones over looping footage of protests flooding capitals from Washington to Rome, from Sao Paulo to Seoul. Hashtags bled across every screen. Hash Maelstrom Files, hash Holloway Truth, hash End the Storm. For the first time in decades, citizens weren't arguing about parties or policies. They were arguing about the weather itself. If disaster could be engineered, what wasn't a weapon anymore? Maria Lozano wasn't there to see it. Somewhere in the Atlantic, her boat had been found adrift, engine silent, deck, empty life vests untouched. No sign of struggle, no trace of her body. Just a single waterproof envelope taped to the wheelhouse, marked in black ink, "Keep watching the sky." Inside a USB drive, identical to the one she'd used in Florida, the captain who found it turned it over to Interpol, and within hours it was in the hands of investigators who didn't yet know they were touching history. The drive contained a final data cache, satellite images, atmospheric readings, coordinates of cloud seeding operations stretching back 25 years. Proof that the storms weren't random, that Project Maelstrom had matured into a global consortium hiding behind humanitarian aid. For every hurricane that destroyed a coast, someone somewhere had collected the insurance. The fallout was immediate. Markets collapsed under the weight of disbelief. The Secretary of Defense resigned live on air. CEOs fled the country. Congressional hearings opened overnight. And through it all, Amanda Holloway's face, her recorded defiance, played like a mantra on endless repeat. Make sure someone does. Eli Navarro reappeared in Madrid, thin, unshaven voice trembling with both relief and terror. He broadcast a new documentary using the recovered footage, weaving together Amanda's story, Maria's pursuit, and the evidence spilling from Maelstrom's vaults. The final frame was Maria standing on the pier, rain in her eyes, whispering, "We did what we could." The film broke every viewership record in streaming history. Donations poured into whistleblower funds. A generation of young activists carried her name on cardboard signs, Lozano Lives. But inside the corridors of power, the response was colder, surgical. A joint task force convened in Geneva to stabilize public trust. Behind closed doors, diplomats argued not about guilt, but about control. One delegate said, "If we confess to creating the storms, civilization loses faith in science. If we deny it, we lose control of narrative." Another replied, "Then we rewrite the narrative." Within a week, official statements reframed Maelstrom as an experimental meteorological defense initiative. They promised transparency, opened partial archives, and quietly buried the rest under the label Continuing Research. The machine was adapting again. Across the ocean in Cedar Hollow, Florida rain fell harder than it had in years. Locals swore the storms felt different, slower, heavier, deliberate. The bronze plaque for Amanda was now surrounded by candles, flowers, and handwritten notes from strangers. One read, "You changed the weather." Another simply said, "Thank you for the flood." No one understood what that meant, but somehow it felt right. At Interpol's Climate Crime Division, an analyst named Reza Khan was assigned to catalog the Holloway materials. Weeks into the task, he discovered an encrypted folder on Maria's final drive, one that even the Bureau's system couldn't open. The file name was a date December 9th, 2025. He assumed it was corrupted until at exactly midnight on that date, the folder unlocked itself. Inside was a single video message. Maria appeared on screen sitting in a cabin lit by storm lanterns. Her face was older, scarred, alive. If you're seeing this, it means they found the truth, or at least the part they can handle, she said. But the real question isn't who made the storms, it's who benefits when people stop believing in the sky. She paused, the wind rattling behind her. Maelstrom was never about weather control. It was about belief control. Give them a disaster, and they'll trade freedom for safety every time. She leaned closer. They'll rebuild Maelstrom under another name. They always do, so keep watching. And when the clouds move wrong, remember Amanda. The clip ended there. No timestamp, no coordinates. Just static that sounded almost like rain. Interpol released the message to the public. Overnight, the world turned Maria Lozano into myth, half-martyr, half-ghost. Murals of her face appeared on walls in Buenos Aires, Nairobi, Manila. A new movement formed, scientists, journalists, coders, calling themselves the Watchers. Their logo, a single eye inside a hurricane spiral. Their slogan, "The storm isn't weather." Governments tried to discredit them. Some members vanished. Others released fresh leaks, contracts, patents, weather modification budgets disguised as aerosol research. Every revelation sparked another protest. Every protest birthed another silence. And still, the weather kept changing. In late autumn, a Category 6 cyclone formed off the Atlantic, larger than any on record. Satellites lost visual contact within hours. Then, inexplicably, it changed direction, swerving east toward open water instead of land. Meteorologists called it impossible. The Watchers called it Amanda. When the skies cleared, they found a buoy washed up on the coast of Portugal. Inside its data core was a handwritten note sealed in plastic. Some truths fight back. No one claimed authorship. No one needed to. Months passed. Trials concluded. Sentences announced investigations dissolved into committees. The world adjusted as it always did. But in quiet corners in labs and classrooms, in the minds of those who still remembered Maria's final warning, echoed like weather itself. Keep watching the sky. In Cedar Hollow, a child stood at the rebuilt pier one evening, holding a phone that streamed an old video. Amanda's voice drifted through tinny speakers. If anyone ever hears this, don't stop at the first truth you find. The child looked up at the bruised clouds and whispered, "I won't." Lightning flashed once across the horizon, bright, deliberate, almost like an answer. 10 years have passed since the storm that changed the world. The year is 2035. Florida's coasts are higher, its skies quieter. The headlines no longer mention Maelstrom by name. They call it the Weather Initiative Atmospheric Security, or sometimes nothing at all. The truth didn't die, it was rebranded. Cedar Hollow no longer exists on most maps. After another hurricane, the natural kind, they say the town was relocated inland, its ruins swallowed by mangroves. But people still come to the edge of the old highway, to the memorial that marks where Amanda Ray Holloway once stood against a system. The bronze plaque has weathered green, yet the engraving remains sharp. Truth survives weather. Every year on September 12th, someone leaves a fresh sunflower and a flash drive wrapped in plastic. No one claims them. No one dares remove them. Across the ocean, the Watchers operate in fragments. What began as a movement is now a whisper network scattered across continents, scientists in exile, coders living under assumed names, journalists working through encrypted feeds. Their messages appear as streaks of code hidden inside weather reports, as graffiti under bridges. The sky remembers. Governments call them eco-terrorists. Citizens call them conspiracy romantics. But in the last 2 years, patterns have re-emerged, storms forming in symmetrical grids, rainfall matching the geometry of corporate shipping lanes. The world pretends it's coincidence. The Watchers know better. Someone rebuilt Maelstrom quieter, smarter global, and someone is leading them. In a safe house beneath the Pyrenees, a young analyst named Aisha Khan studies real-time satellite feeds. She's 23, raised on the myth of Amanda Holloway tattooed with the spiral eye of the Watchers. On her monitor, cloud formations shift like living code. At 0317 UTC, she receives a new transmission. No origin, no signature, just coordinates and a sound file. When she plays it, the static clears to a voice half buried by wind. If you can hear this, you're already part of it. Keep the data free. The storm isn't over. The voice is unmistakable. Older, rasped alive. Maria Lozano. Aisha freezes. The last confirmed footage of Lozano is the cabin video from 2025. 10 years of speculation, memorials, documentaries, imposters. And now, this proof or bait. She copies the file to multiple servers, sends it through encrypted nodes, and types one word into the network's secure channel, awake. Within hours, Watcher cells from Berlin to Buenos Aires report similar messages, same voice, different coordinates. A pattern emerges each point, forming the shape of a spiral across the Atlantic basin. The original Maelstrom pattern, only this time reversed unmaking itself. Governments panic quietly, satellites realign. Weather agencies issue statements about unusual atmospheric harmonics. The public shrugs. The sky has been strange for a decade. But inside closed rooms, officials recognize a signature in the data packets, an encryption key registered to a long-dead federal contractor, Lozano M. At 0745 UTC, the United Nations Weather Control Council declares a global cyber emergency. They call it a digital hurricane. Meanwhile, somewhere in the South Atlantic, a fishing trawler drifts beneath slate clouds. Its radio crackles with coded bursts of static. In the cabin, an old woman sits wrapped in a weather-stained coat, eyes on a console of blinking lights. Her hands tremble from age, not fear. She adjusts a dial, speaks softly into the mic. Aisha, if you are receiving this, the key is in the pattern. The same frequency they used to bind the storms can free them. Don't let them weaponize the sky again. She stops, coughs, listens to the rain tap the hull like Morse. Outside lightning veins the horizon controlled symmetrical artificial. She smiles a small defiant curve. Hello again, Amanda, she whispers. The trawler's sensors spike energy levels rising from beneath the ocean. A low hum fills the air deep enough to rattle bone. The device on her table, the final Maelstrom core she salvaged years ago, glows faint blue. She flips two switches. The hum shifts pitch, blending with thunder until the difference disappears. On satellites above, analysts watch a phenomenon that shouldn't exist. Every active storm in the hemisphere begins to unravel simultaneously. Cloud arms collapsing inward, pressure equalizing. The atmosphere exhales. In control rooms around the world, technicians shout conflicting orders, abort sequence, lock it down. Who's doing this? But the data moves faster than human reaction. The weather itself is rebooting. In Geneva, diplomats stare at the feeds in silence. One finally says, she's undoing it. Another asks, can she? No one answers. At 0812 UTC, all transmissions from the trawler cease. The storm dissipates within the hour, leaving skies so clear that satellites capture the ocean's surface with photographic clarity. In the water, where the boat had been a spiral of sunlight, ripples outward like a fingerprint fading. The next morning, the Watchers release a final communique. Project Maelstrom terminated. Atmosphere restored to chaotic neutrality. The sky is free. The message ends with a dedication to Amanda Holloway, who proved that truth is lighter than air. News outlets struggle to explain it. Scientists label it an unprecedented atmospheric realignment. Religious leaders call it a miracle. Politicians call it an act of cyber terrorism. But the weather stays calm. For the first time in decades, hurricane season passes without a single named storm. Weeks later, Aisha Khan receives one last encrypted package. No sender. Inside, a photograph of a calm sea at dawn and a single line typed across the bottom. Keep watching, but now watch for peace. The metadata shows it was captured from somewhere near the Falkland Islands, exactly at 08:12 UTC, the minute the trawler vanished. She prints the image, pins it above her desk beside the portrait of Amanda and the grainy still of Maria from the 2020 trial. For the first time, she allows herself to smile. In Cedar Hollow, the rebuilt town holds its breath through another quiet season. Children play where the old diner once stood. The locals say the storms have moved on, but when the wind shifts, some claim they still hear a woman's voice in the rain, whispering warnings only the waves understand. Don't stop at the first truth you find. And far above, invisible to those below, the atmosphere holds its fragile balance, untamed again, imperfect human. The world has new heroes now, but none like Amanda Holloway or Maria Lozano. They've become part of the language itself, synonyms for defiance, for memory, for the thin line between revelation and ruin. Scholars call their saga the first true crime of the climate age. Artists call it myth. Survivors just call it the storm. On the anniversary of the leak, a message appears across public data networks for exactly 1 minute before vanishing. Its text is simple, unsigned, untraceable. The sky is our witness. Keep it honest. No one claims responsibility, but in the background of that transmission, audio experts detect a faint heartbeat, steady human alive. Maria Lozano, somewhere under an open sky that finally belongs to itself, takes one last breath and whispers into the wind, "Rest now, Amanda, it's yours again." It begins again where it ended, with silence, the kind that hums after thunder, the kind that fills the air when the world has said everything it can, and the rest is left to memory. The world remembers. It remembers Amanda Holloway, the 19-year-old waitress whose courage outlived her body. It remembers Maria Lozano, the detective who traded a badge for the truth. Their names live now in textbooks, in whispered legends, in the quiet awe of students who study not what they did, but why they couldn't stop. Every country tells the story differently. In America, they call it the case that changed the weather. In Europe, it's the birth of the transparency movement. In the corners of the world where censorship still burns bright, it's a forbidden tale passed through encrypted drives, hidden beneath love songs and children's lullabies. No one knows what became of Maria after the calm. Some say she drowned with the trawler, her last act dissolving the engineered storms that strangled the planet for a generation. Others believe she walked away from the sea and kept walking, a ghost among fishermen living under names that mean nothing. And some swear they've seen her an old woman with salt white hair and a compass around her neck, appearing at ports before hurricanes that never arrive, leaving only calm skies behind. In Cedar Hollow, what's left of the town has become a sanctuary. The memorial stands taller now, polished by hands that never knew Amanda, but feel her absence anyway. Each year, on the night of her death, they hold a vigil. They project her final recording onto the clouds, her face flickering in the mist, voice breaking through static. Don't stop at the first truth you find. Children mouth the words, adults close their eyes, and for a few minutes even the air seems to listen. Beyond the coasts, the Watchers no longer exist as an organization, yet they've become something harder to erase an instinct. Every scientist who questions a report, every journalist who follows a thread, despite the threat, every citizen who looks up at the sky and wonders who decides its color, they are fragments of Amanda's rebellion, sparks of Maria's defiance. The system rebuilt itself, yes, it always does, but now it builds slower under scrutiny, haunted by the fear of another Holloway waiting in its shadow. A decade of peace has softened the panic, but not the memory. The world's storms are wilder now, unpredictable again, and people call that freedom. The Weather Initiative still exists, smaller, audited, claiming reform, but once in a while its satellites blink off for exactly 11 minutes, always at 11:47 p.m., the time Amanda died. No one can explain it. The logs reset themselves, the data clears. Engineers call it a glitch. Pilots call it a ghost. The Watchers, what few remain, call it Maria's heartbeat. One evening, a maintenance crew repairing the communications buoy that washed ashore a decade earlier finds something strange sealed inside its rusted frame, a small waterproof recorder, still functional. When they press play, a woman's voice rises beneath the hum of waves. I told Amanda once that justice isn't about winning. It's about making sure the story survives long enough to scare the next monster. If you're hearing this, then the story did. A pause, then softer. Take care of the sky. It's fragile, like people who tell the truth. Then static, fading into the rhythm of the tide. The clip circulates online within hours. Millions listen. Some cry, some doubt. But everyone listens. In a quiet newsroom in Madrid, Eli Navarro, older, now grayer still alive, watches the clip alone. His hands shake as he closes his laptop. On his wall hangs a photograph of 3 women, Amanda smiling in her diner uniform, Maria in uniform beside her, and a young activist who wasn't even born when Amanda died. Beneath it, written in marker truth, is weather it changes, but it never stops moving. Outside, thunder gathers again over the Atlantic. The rain begins slow, hesitant, as if remembering what it once was. Navarro steps out into it, face upturned, eyes closed. "You did it," he murmurs to the clouds. "You both did." Half a world away, a girl named Imani sits at her desk in Nairobi, working late on a physics thesis about atmospheric resonance. Her model suggests the planet carries a faint rhythmic frequency, a pulse detectable only during clear skies. Her supervisor calls it background noise, but Imani names it Lozano waves. She believes it's the Earth's memory of the day the storms stopped. And sometimes, when she filters the signal through her headphones, she swears she can hear 2 voices beneath the static, one young one, older, whispering something she can't quite make out. The only word she's sure of is free. In Washington, a dusty file sits forgotten in a restricted archive. Its label reads, Florida, 1998, cold case Amanda Holloway. The status box still says solved, but someone unknown, unauthorized has written 3 letters across it in red ink, ONG. A clerk notices, once erases them, and the next morning they reappear as if written from the inside of the folder. Eventually, they stop trying to remove it. And far south, in a coastal village, no map bothers to name an old woman walks the shoreline at dawn. She carries a cup of coffee, black and strong, her gait slow but steady. The waves hiss around her ankles, dragging foam across the sand. She looks up, squints at the horizon, where clouds are forming real ones, wild ones, born of heat and chance. She smiles. From her coat pocket, she pulls a small weathered badge, the one she turned in years ago, and lays it on a rock facing the sea. The tide will take it in minutes, but that's the point. "We solved it, Amanda," she says softly. "We finally solved it." She turns, heading back toward the village. Behind her, the sun lifts through the mist, painting the water in gold. For a moment, the light catches something in the foam, the faint outline of a spiral, fading, reforming alive. Some witnesses later swear they saw the sky brighten, as if exhaling. Some say they heard a woman's laughter carried on the wind, and somewhere between weather and faith, between memory and myth, the world decides that's enough. Because some stories don't end with justice or revenge. They end when people finally look up and see the sky for what it is, uncontrolled, unpredictable, honest.